Needham has studied housing and its lack for a long time. We got to the neighborhood plan by studying what we have done in the past. In 2007, Needham performed a housing study that indicated a lack of housing diversity and availability. In response, in 2009, rezoning in Needham Center and Chestnut Street increased possible building heights up to 4 stories and made other changes to encourage development. In the years since, only one property, 50 Dedham Ave, has been developed under that new zoning. In 2021, prior to the passage of the MBTA Communities Law, the town undertook another study of Needham housing, and as in the previous study, deficiencies noted included a lack of housing diversity, lack of housing availability, and a great burden on Needham residents, meaning that many are spending a disproportionate amount of their income on housing. The neighborhood plan implements the priority recommendations of the housing plan. 1, comply with the MBTA Communities Law. Number 2, promote appropriate development opportunities. In 2021, the MBTA Communities Law was refined and passed, and Needham created the Housing Needham Advisory Committee, known as HONE, to plan Needham's implementation of the new law. The timing was fortuitous. Public discussion and understanding of the region's housing crisis, combined with a new town focus on Needham's own local housing shortage, drove interest in the possibilities for change and new development. Public engagement and participation in HONE's year-long process was unprecedented. The resulting plan was created for Needham by Needham residents. Next slide. Needham has an urgent and significant need for more housing today. Here are the reasons. Needham is aging. Since 2020, our 65 plus population has increased by 29%. By 2030, in just 6 years, almost a quarter, 25% of Needham residents will be seniors. Think of a quarter of Needham's population aging in their single-family homes. This may prevent our seniors from living active and social lives, and for sure, it will lock up our housing inventory. The Mass Taxpayers Foundation calls Massachusetts a challenging place to raise a family, citing the cost of housing and childcare and long commute times. The Boston Chamber of Commerce survey shows that 1 out of 4 residents aged 26 to 35 plan to leave Greater Boston because of the high cost of rent and difficulty in buying a home. This crisis is causing our young professionals to leave the area and to leave Needham. Those who stay face financial challenges, and the greatest risk is to our seniors. But we know we don't have to look outside of Needham to know that there is something serious going on, because we all know it's true from our own lives. We all have friends who rush to bid on a house and can't bid fast enough. We all have friends whose kids have left Needham for college and who now can't afford to return with their own children. Our older neighbors who are maybe tired of shoveling and steps, they want to stay in the community but have nowhere to move. Our divorced families who can't afford to run 2 households in Needham. Our aging parent who wants a home that is convenient and close to us, but where they can live independently and participate in community life. And we, the sandwich generations, who can't afford to spend all of our time racing between kids and parent care. We have friends who choose to rent to be in Needham. Our teachers, our nurses, are critical members of society who cannot afford to join our community. Consider, could you afford to move to Needham now if you hadn't purchased 10, 20, 30 years ago? I couldn't. Needham does not have enough housing, and we don't have enough housing choices to allow our residents to be healthy and socially thriving. When we consider the breadth of the need we face, we need to think about how we want to respond to it and what kind of community we choose to be. Next slide. Why is the neighborhood plan a good choice for Needham? Planning for Needham's implementation drew from our housing plans, from our yearly surveys, and our community goals. These are the select board goals that guide the work of town leadership. Among them, choosing to foster connections among neighbors, a thriving local economy that contributes to a growing local tax base and supports community programs and amenities, a broad spectrum of housing options, accessible and connected neighborhoods without relying solely on cars, an inclusive community that is safe. When we think about the future, we should refer these goals and ask these questions. What is our vision for Needham's future? Who do we want to be? And who do we want to include in our community? The base plan, next slide, please. The base plan complies with the word of the law. The neighborhood plan is compliant with the MBTA communities law in word and in spirit. It responds to the deficiencies found by the Needham housing plan. The neighborhood plan recognizes and addresses Needham's housing crisis with well-researched, data-driven solutions created with a lot of public input. The neighborhood plan preserves our existing neighborhoods, and it creates new neighborhoods defined by transit-oriented housing and walkable neighborhoods that support the economic health and vitality of Needham's local businesses and supports Needham's climate and social goals. The plan seeks to revitalize Needham's underutilized spine of industrial and business districts. Zoning changes implemented in 2009 failed to incentivize increased housing production. The changes in Article 10 and 11 are simply a natural next step based on Needham's housing studies completed in 2007 and 2021. A town's character is defined by its people and its community. Multifamily housing is already part of Needham's housing inventory. The neighborhood plan allows for more multifamily development opportunities, and it is supported by Needham, including by town groups like the League of Women Voters of Needham, Green Needham, the Needham Housing Authority, and the Needham Housing Coalition. Next slide. The Needham housing plan, the neighborhood housing plan rather, benefits the town by providing tax revenue that will cover municipal services, while new resident spending will increase the economic activity in town. It gives our residents choices for home style and location, while potentially freeing housing inventory for others. Foot traffic and density help make our town centers vibrant and foster community by creating neighborhoods where residents can walk to amenities like healthcare, shopping, and dining. Next slide. Those familiar with the business of construction and development, including the consultants working on this plan, town committees like the Council of Economic Advisors, and regional groups like the Charles River Chamber of Commerce, not to mention the more than 35 Needham businesses who support the neighborhood plan, support the plan, but acknowledge that this development will take many years to come about. The challenge of small parcel sizes, individual ownership, and land costs, loss of income, development costs, and interest rates combine to make new development nearly serendipitous and not at all guaranteed. Despite estimates that project that a full build-out could take 20 years, the town, in its very cautious and endearing way, has used a 10-year timeline in which to plan for potential growth. This timeline allows for growth and adjustments in capital planning and in school planning. When new units come online, the town departments and the school department monitor and adapt. Next slide. The analysis on the screen incorporates nearly twice the number of kids projected in the modeling. We would expect 164 in our likely build-out scenario, but we're doing our planning with 306, just to make sure. In similar fashion, as I mentioned, the timeline has been condensed from 20 years to 10. Altogether, this makes for an extremely cautious projection for how well the resulting new students would fit into our current and future buildings. And in fact, these numbers have been approved by the school demographer, Bill McKibben. When we talk about the future like this, we do have to talk about managing risk. The town has made extremely cautious projections with data-driven analysis of all facets of the development issues. The Select Board understands and shares the desire to protect our phenomenal school system. It's what brought many of us to Needham in the first place. However, we are fortunate to have capital plans in place. We have incredible professionals who are subject matter experts to work on this planning with us. Planning can be adjusted as the time horizon grows closer. We can move forward and plan, and we can adjust. We can care for our school population and help grow our housing stock for the entire town's benefit. We can take care of our kids and take care of our seniors. It will take work and vigilance, but this is something that we can and should do. Next slide. The neighborhood plan is anticipated to have economic benefits for Needham, which support our goal of being economically vital. New property tax will support town and school services. Small and large employers, including the town of Needham, will have an increased ability to attract and retain a local workforce. Construction and ongoing jobs will persist, especially in mixed-use developments. Retail businesses will have the support of increased foot traffic in the center and the Heights, and we can anticipate new spending by residents in Needham's local economy and in the region. The more attractive people find Needham, the more desirable Needham becomes. Walkable neighborhoods are in high demand and can add to the desirability of adjacent neighborhoods. Reports from MIT, Harvard, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and others conclude that multifamily housing development has no detrimental effect on single-family home values. The neighborhood plan is anticipated to have a net positive tax revenue in both the likely build-out and full build-out scenarios, and net positive fiscal impact along with a boost in CPA funds. And this, a note of thanks to the Finance Committee for pointing out our oversight in not including benefits. We have since run that analysis. Including benefits will add $250 per unit to the unit cost, and this does not change the determination of a net positive fiscal impact. Next slide. Transit-oriented housing is intended to reduce individual car use by encouraging the use of public transit and via reduced parking minimums. This supports Needham's goal of accessibility as the neighborhood plan increases walkability within new neighborhoods and along Needham's main routes. There have been traffic studies done, most notably by GPI just recently, based on the neighborhood plan likely build scenario, and it finds that with mitigation of 9 intersections, traffic should remain at a reasonable level, and 7 of those intersections are already on the town's capital plan. Town meeting's previous vote to approve compliance has ensured that Needham will have continued access to state and federal funding that may assist us with the Highland Ave project and other projects that will protect the usability and accessibility of our streets and infrastructure. The Mobility Planning and Coordination Committee support the Neighborhood Housing Plan. Next slide. The neighborhood plan is supported by the Climate Action Committee and Green Needham because the neighborhood plan supports Needham's goal of being environmentally sustainable. New buildings will be created according to the specialized building code already approved by town meeting. Properties will comply with current and updated stormwater management code and stormwater bylaws. And as most of the Needham's MBTA zone is redevelopment, the water and sewer infrastructure is already in place. Next slide, please. So what is the consequence of inaction? It's not something we talk about a lot. People often say, let's wait and see. Why move further than the law requires? Zoning passed in 2009 allowed greater height and density than allowed by the base compliance plan. The compliance plan should most accurately be seen as an inventory of existing housing rather than a plan to produce more housing, with the exception of those units at 100 West. While it allows for new housing, we know that the same number of units are currently available under the existing zoning and overlays. We've waited and we've seen that our existing zoning and the base compliance plan will not produce a lot of development. We know what the alternative looks like because we're already living it. Workers are hard to retain and hire. This affects all of our businesses, small and large. Retail businesses do not thrive without foot traffic. We know that businesses have left Needham for greener pastures. Building owners prefer reliable tenants. This is one of the causes of the proliferation of banks in our streetscape. Lack of housing variety creates a barrier for people to stay in Needham and move to Needham, which causes the loss of intergenerational families within town. Without housing diversity, we create barriers to social, active, and productive aging, and increase the cost of housing for all. We can plan for it, we can monitor it, and we can mitigate it with thoughtful process and oversight while we face dynamic variables. But leadership means meeting the urgency and acting rather than delaying decisions while we search for information that isn't available yet and will only be available in the future. The challenge is to move forward, making thoughtful decisions based on the information we have while understanding that we might need to adjust. The next step towards Needham's future is the neighborhood housing plan. We can act now to shape the future we want for Needham. Next slide. The Select Board's vision is one in which Needham is a safe and welcoming town that more people are proud to call home. The Select Board recommends adoption of Articles 10 and 11. Thank you.